Hello. Have I got my phone yet? Hello. Welcome. This is a talk about the duration that things take to happen. So we're going to start off with some very quick things, and then slowly move up to things that take more and more time. We're going to particularly focus on things that are relevant to video games, because this is a video games conference, so I feel vaguely obliged. But we'll also take in a lot of other stuff. And fair warning, this is going to be a bit of a whistle-stop tour, skip over some things, not include some things, because there's a lot of durations. Did you know that? There's a lot of different things that exist, and they all happen at different speeds, and this is a half-hour talk, so only a few of them will get mentioned. So, let's start at the beginning. 0.00000000000000539 seconds. That's 800, sorry. This is the Planck time. This is a silly number, but it's the smallest meaningful unit of time, according to physics. It's the amount of time it takes for light to travel the Planck distance, which is in turn the smallest meaningful unit of distance. Smallest meaningful unit of distance is very, very small, and light travels very, very fast. So this is a very, very, very silly number. But I figured I'd start at the smallest number possible. So, onwards. 850 zeptoseconds. Now, a zeptosecond is 1/60th of a second. This is 0.019 times 85 seconds. This is currently the smallest interval of time we can measure with our most precise scientific instruments. What you do is you fire a laser, a very, very, very brief laser, at a helium atom, and you can see an electron being ejected. The laser doesn't go quick enough to do this. It's still like 12 orders of magnitude slower or something. So you do it a lot of times, and by averaging over the results, you can infer that actually it happened at this time particularly. So yeah, maths is pretty great. Statistics, pretty great. Tell your friends. Okay, so a bit more real. A practical number of the kind you might use every day. 0.210 something something nanoseconds. This is how long it takes, on average, for a Raspberry Pi 2 to execute a single instruction. Something like add two numbers together or jump to this other section of code, that kind of thing. This is 4,744 million instructions per second. That's a lot. So it turns out computers are pretty quick at doing things. And also, I should remind you, this is a Raspberry Pi. It costs $35, and it's this big. It's not like a shiny computer like mine here. Yeah, computers are really fast. It's wild. So, skipping up a bit, about 100 nanoseconds. This is how long it takes to access some data that's stored in your RAM. So you read a simple variable in your code. This is how long it takes for the computer to read it. Unless it takes more or less time, because everything is complicated with computers. So it might take less time, because CPUs have a lot of extra caches, and they can read ahead in your code and go fetch some memory ahead of time that you've not even asked for yet, but you probably will ask for in the future. And this is generally a good thing, because a memory read takes about as long as 5,000 instructions. So if you do it earlier, it means you've saved a bunch of time, and that's great. But also it might take much longer to just read a variable, because programming languages like to do a whole load of extra stuff behind your back, instead of just, directly reading some memory. This is just for your own good, really. Does things like making sure that memory exists, isn't just filled with garbage, or it uses some indirect way to find out where the variable is actually stored, which is better because, just let's not get too bogged down in it. Computers, complicated. 50 microseconds. A change every 50 microseconds works out as 20 kilohertz. This is the highest frequency the human ear can hear. I'm going to play it now. If you're young, this will be an annoying sound. If you're old, you might have fucked your ears and won't be able to hear it. Can we hear it? There we go. Okay, good. So specific frequencies correspond to specific hairs inside your inner ear vibrating. So that irritating sound maps to a tiny hair inside your body, like a particular hair inside your body vibrating and that signal going into your thing. So, 1 millisecond. I have a series of videos here from the Applied Sciences group at Microsoft Research. So 1 millisecond of latency between you moving your finger and a computer system responding. That's very fast, and it feels super tangible. It feels like it's like a physical object just there on your finger. 2 milliseconds. This is the shortest offset that a drummer can hear. This was tested by getting some really experienced drummers and then misaligning a beat by just like 2 milliseconds. And they were just about able to spot it. This is probably the shortest time period we're able to like directly experience, as opposed to like you notice that the light isn't quite on your finger, or you know the physical hair is actually vibrating and you can do that. Like this is actually the smallest unit we can probably process as like a temporal unit in our brain. So sorry, there's a thing that's distracting. There's tiny, tinny pop music playing out this speaker. Could whoever's doing the sound? Good, thank you. Sorry. It was just a weird, tiny, distracting thing. Anyway, back to the talk. 10 milliseconds. So, I'm going to show you a video. This is about 10 times the latency in the previous video. But it still feels pretty direct and tangible. This works out to about 100 frames per second. And this is about the limit at which you stop being able to perceive like increase in frame rate. So these high frame rates and low latencies are becoming ever more important because, you know, as this amaze shows, VR is a thing now. So extra latency now makes people feel like physically sick. And that turns out to give people a massive incentive to make things have much better latency. As these videos show, like a latency is incredibly important for giving the perception of like direct tangibility, not that you're doing a thing and then the computer's giving you a response back, and then you can work on that. So this is one of the main reasons I'm like really grateful for the rise of VR. It means that everyone makes their systems lower latency, and that's good for everyone. But this is difficult to do. So back to computers for a sec. 10 milliseconds. This is about how long it takes a hard drive with a spinny disk to seek to an arbitrary location, like it actually has to physically move the head to the right place to do it. 20 milliseconds. How long it takes to read 1 megabyte from a hard drive with the spinny disk. If you're using SSDs, then it's about a 20th of that. And you don't have any seek times, so you don't need to like wait before you can start reading it. So SSDs, pretty cool. And here we can see why making open world streaming video games is hard. There's a huge world full of different things, so much stuff that it doesn't all fit into memory. And you can go anywhere and see anything, and we still want to hit a consistent frame rate. So how long do you have to load the new thing from memory and then work out how to render it and still hit the magic 60 frames per second number we all care so deeply about? 16.67 milliseconds. This is a number I have super burned into my head as a programmer. Like, all the work you do to make a video game update has to fit into 16.67 milliseconds. And it's really hard, even with computers as fast as they are. It's really hard. I'm just complaining here, but it is. So, 20 milliseconds. This is 50 kilohertz. 50 hertz. This sound might be familiar. Electricity from the wall comes as alternating current, and it alternates at about 50 hertz. So electrical equipment hums at about 50 hertz and sounds like this. 41 milliseconds. This is basically 24 frames per second, which is like the historical frame rate for film. This means we see things at 24 frames per second as cinematic, which is basically just for reasons of cultural association rather than anything intrinsic in the frame rate. Films are 24 FPS, so 24 FPS looks like film, so 24 FPS feels cinematic. Why were they shot at 24 FPS? Because film stock is really expensive, and 24 FPS is good enough to be realistic enough. It always comes down to this kind of technical compromise. 83 milliseconds. In animation, this is called animating on twos. This is because you're only doing one drawing every 2 frames. Why not just lower the frame rate? Because maybe you want to do other bits on ones, I do a new drawing every frame. That's what one on ones means. Or maybe you still want to get smooth pans, because you don't have to draw a new thing to do a pan, you just need to move the camera a bit. So this looks a bit less fluid, but it's still basically fine. Disney typically animates on ones, Warner Brothers typically animates on twos, and you can even go to like threes or fours if you want, but it'll look even jankier. 100 milliseconds. So while this is clearly like unsatisfying, it's still just about fast enough to feel like you're directly interacting with the square. 150 milliseconds. This is about how long it takes to send an internet request to a computer in America and get a response back. This number is about 10 times the number you need to hit 60 FPS, and this is why networked multiplayer games are hard. 30 milliseconds. So this is kind of a personal thing about my own tastes in game design. So this is what I use as my default for most transitions when I'm putting it into code and then just, working on it. I'll just put 0.3 of a second. I think it looks nice. I think it's basically fine. This is also about how long it takes for people to blink. 500 milliseconds. 120 BPM. This is the classic pop music tempo. And it's also the speed you're supposed to do CPR at. When people's hearts stop beating, they have to pump their chests. This means that a way to get the right speed for that is to sing Another One Bites the Dust by Queen to yourself as you do it. Doom, 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 doom. Another one bites the dust, and another one bites, and another one bites, another one bites the dust. 750 milliseconds. So this is actually your average resting heart rate for an adult. It'll go a bit faster if you're exercising, and it can go slower if you get super fit. 1 second. So it's the speed that clocks tick at. This is about how long you can wait to respond to a user without them losing the flow of their thoughts and forgetting what they were trying to achieve. But you could hook them for a bit longer if you played a nice throbber animation or had a spinny circle going around. 2 seconds. This is the average length of a shot in the Michael Bay film Armageddon. 4 seconds. Average time between breaths for an adult if they're resting. 5 seconds. When the photo Monument Valley by Tracy Emin was shown at Tate Britain, this is how long, on average, a visitor would stop to look at it. This isn't meant as a sass at Tracy Emin. It just seemed like a normal amount of time for a gallery visitor to look at a thing they're not entranced by, and I tried to find a specific number, and this was the best one I could find. So I'm going to show you the piece to you for 5 seconds, so get ready for 5 seconds of Tracy Emin. 10 seconds. When people are using a program and the program makes them wait longer than this, they'll likely get distracted and start doing something else. So I can attest to this one from my own experience as somebody who waits for Unity to compile things a lot. But there's also a bunch of games that last 10 seconds. A few weeks ago, a festival I was one of the curators of called Now Play This had a whole room dedicated to them. We called it the 10-second room. So I'm going to show you some of them. In Vector Park's Sandcastles, you have 10 seconds to build sandcastles on a beach before a wave washes in and they sink beneath the waves. It's enough time to build some stuff and to start to get attached to it. In Andy McClure and Michael Bro's Become a Great Artist in Just 10 Seconds, which I think always has to be written in all caps, you have 10 seconds to try to replicate a picture using some really obscure controls. It's enough time to start moving from random button mashing to having a plan, but not enough time to perfect it. In Jenny's Morning Makeup Madness, you have 10 seconds to do your makeup in the morning. It usually doesn't go that well. This is a game about how you should get out of bed earlier. In Yara El-Shabini's Operation Brexit, you have 10 seconds to use tweezers to hoik all 4 countries in the UK out of Europe. 10 seconds is not long enough to do this, in much the same way that 2 years is also not long enough. In Lee Shanglin's Telephone, you have 10 seconds to respond to a prompt given to you down a telephone. It's long enough to confess a secret. In Anthropy's Queers in Love at the End of the World, you have 10 seconds to spend a final moment with a lover before everything ends. It's enough time to tell them that you love them, or to start fucking. Okay. "20 seconds. This is the average time it took Matt Bierner to complete a Spelunky level when he made this graph and put it online for me to pinch my talk. He is quite good at Spelunky. 1 minute and 39.716 seconds. This is the current world record for completing Spelunky. This is really quick. So there's a game design concept of like loops. This is a sequence of events where you face a situation and you make a choice and you view the results of that choice. Making choices and seeing the results can be pretty satisfying, it turns out. You could look at loops, if you want to, as like the essential building blocks of gameplay. A loop can be, as the title of this talk suggests, very quick or very slow. There's a school of design which valorizes stacking as many loops inside each other as possible, all interacting. So the whole time you're operating on multiple levels at once. In Spelunky, the smallest of the loops is dealing with individual hazards on each level. Whipping a spider, dropping a rope to descend, placing a bomb to get some extra gold, or break a passage open. You're sizing up a situation, using some of your available verbs, and then you're seeing what happened. Maybe you died, maybe you got past. Most likely you died. A somewhat larger loop than that is making it through an entire level. You have to make kind of larger choices here. Do you rescue the damsel? Do you buy something in the shop? How are your levels of ropes and bombs looking? Do you need to divert to find more? You know, kind of strategic decisions, not tactical ones. But both of these levels of loops interact. The goals you have in the smaller loops are set by your decisions you're making in the larger loops. And success of the high-level goals you've got is determined by the success of the low-level goals. Loops. 2 minutes and 30 seconds. This is the amount of time you can wait on a single level of Spelunky before an almost invincible ghost comes out and chases you or kills you, depending on how agile you are. 8 minutes and 20 seconds. The average amount of time it takes for light to reach the Earth from the sun. 15 minutes. Average length of a video that's been uploaded to YouTube. 30 minutes. This is how long this talk takes. What you're listening to now. 90 minutes. This is how long a game of football is supposed to take. 110 minutes-ish. This is actual average length of a game of football match with half-time and a bit of stoppage time factored in. In my opinion, it's about as long as you can do a sport that has a lot of running around in it before the sport just becomes about endurance and managing to keep doing a very, very tiring thing. 120 minutes plus a bit. This is how long a chess match can go for if you're playing with timers like a pro. There's a lot of interesting game design in exactly how the rules for the timer works, like extra bits of timer added on after every turn, and sometimes after 40 moves, the rules for that change. Like, I'm not actually a chess player, so I don't really have a strong opinion about it, but it looks really cool. Go look it up. 6 hours. I made a bot called Soft Landscapes, which posts a landscape every 6 hours on Twitter. I found this about the right balance between posting frequently and not being too annoying and spammy. It felt like a calm interval to post at, for me. 8 hours. This is how long it takes to score a single point in Desert Bus, as found on the unreleased game Penn and Teller's Smoke and Mirrors. All you do is you drive along a featureless road for 8 hours, and then you reach Las Vegas, and you can choose to drive back, which would get you a second point, and so on. 1 day. The time it takes the Earth to do one full rotation. The sun rises, and it sets again. You wake up, you eat some food, you live your life. It's really interesting to me to make a game that fits into your daily life and routines, that is anchored to real-world time. In 2012, Michael Bro made a game called Vesper 5, which you can see here. You're a monk, and you're progressing through a cavern. Every day, you can take one single step, and then you sit down, and you can't move again until the next day. It's a game that builds meaning from waiting, from your investment in the game over multiple days. If you choose to go see that flower up there, that weird-looking thing, that's a week of your actual life you're committed to it. It's a certain type of cost. It's a cost of your attention, and that's like a cost that can't be faked. And Spelunky also has a daily component. Every day, there's a different generated world, and you get a single chance to play through that configuration. If you die, you can never see it again. And of course, all this goes onto a leaderboard. This makes dying, which you do a lot of in Spelunky, suddenly much, much more meaningful. You can't just start again to try for the special challenge, but have to, again, like wait for an entire day. It fits in with the rhythms of your life. It's a thing that sits with you outside of the game. And over the days that you play, the outermost loop of Spelunky kind of kicks in. And that's observing your own skill at the game, making choices to practice particular areas, particular techniques, and watching your own improvement. And I think that's the most important gameplay loop in Spelunky, and it takes place entirely inside your own head. 3 days. The length of a maze. This festival, isn't it nice? 5 days. How long a game of test match cricket takes to play. It's a fun sport. It's a nice thing to like follow along to whilst you work. You check in on repeatedly throughout a week. 1 week. Once a week, on Saturday nights from 8 p.m, you can visit KK Slider within Animal Crossing and request a song. There's lots of weekly events within our life. Things we look forward to, TV shows that repeat, things that give us small moments of joy. For people playing Animal Crossing, KK Slider is one of those. And the affection that people feel for him is surely enhanced by having to wait a week for him to play a song again. 345 hours, 3 minutes and 12 seconds. This is the longest, fastest 100% speedrun for a game. That's kind of a confusing sentence, so let's try it again. Of all the recorded speedruns where people compete to be the fastest ever to play through an entire game, this one is the longest. This is a speedrun of Baten Kaitos, which is a Japanese RPG game where certain things happen in real time. Specifically, there is an item called shampoo, and it takes 2 weeks of real-world time to evolve into fabulous hair. So why is this number longer than 2 weeks? That's because the time pauses when you're in the menu. So this speedrunner had to minimize every second he spent in the menus, while also collecting every single item of the game and finishing it, and also leaving it to run for 2 weeks. 1 month. This is about how long you're expected to leave between games of Risk Legacy. Risk Legacy is a modern spin on Risk, designed by Robert Davidow, where decisions you make in one game of Risk directly impact on the next game you play. So you start the game by tearing up a card. You're not going to play by the rules printed on that one. You end up defacing the board, adding stickers with extra rules, and crossing out various cities as they get nuked. This is like one of the hot new trends in board games. As with Vesper 5, repeated visits and sinking more and more time just deepens your involvement. Only this time it's an experience you've shared with friends, and you're layering stories on stories that you've built together. 9 months. About how long it takes to have a baby. 1 year. This is how long it takes for the Earth to go all the way around the sun. This is also about how long, on and off, it took to make the original version of Spelunky. Video games can take a long time to make. 2 years. This is about how long it took people to reach the end of Desert Golfing, which is a minimalist golf game where the end of one hole is also the start of another. So I'm about to show you the last hole in Desert Golfing, so look away if you don't want the ending ruined. This was hole 64,465, and it took him 182,583 shots, and about 2 years. 3.5 years. About how long it took to make the HD remake of Spelunky. Making polished commercial video games can take even longer. 4.37 years. This is how long it takes for light to reach us from Proxima Centauri, the closest other star. 8 years. The longest continuously running scientific experiment is the pitch drop experiment. It's been running since 1927. Approximately every 8 years, a drop of pitch falls from a funnel, and everyone gets very excited. The result of the experiment, if you're curious, is that pitch has a viscosity of roughly 230 billion times that of water. I guess now they know that, they could stop running the experiment, but people like getting excited, and if drops of pitch do it for them, then I'm not going to judge. 8 years, 9 months, and 17 days. That's how long it's been since the iPhone 3G came out, and that was the first one with an app store. This kicked off a whole new wave of video games, and it's generally hard to imagine the video game scene before that. It's been a roughly similar amount of time since indie games became a thing in the way they are now, you know, like Braid and Super Meat Boy and all that stuff. Before that, it was a drifting wasteland of people happily making mods in Flash games. 20 years. This is about how long it takes for people's perception of what's natural to adjust. This is kind of called a shifting baseline. This means that if, you know, the levels of fish in a particular sea decline massively, after about 20 years you stop missing them and start assuming that the diminished population is what's normal. Fighting against the shifting baseline and trying to work out what's actually normal is a real problem for conservationists. 71.5 years. This is the average human worldwide life expectancy. We're all likely to live longer, though, because we all come from a fairly rich part of the world, and this is a worldwide average. On the other hand, it's only an average, so half of us will die earlier than that. Every 75 years, Halley's Comet is visible in the sky. 1,000 years. There's an exhibition on at the Kindle Centre for Contemporary Art in Newcombe, which is just south of here, that runs until the 28th of May. It's called Olympia, the real-time disintegration into ruins of the Berlin Olympic Stadium over the course of 1,000 years. So it's the screening of a short part of a film that, as the name suggests, the film runs for 1,000 years, and it shows the Olympic Stadium slowly collapsing and giving into the weeds. I've not seen it yet, so I don't know if it's good. I might go this weekend. 9,120 years. If you assume that half of the people who will ever live are now alive or were alive in the past, and also assume a bunch of other things, like the world population will stabilize at about 10 billion people, and people will have an average life expectancy of about 80 years, then this is about how long the human race will survive for. This is a really weird argument to make. I don't really know where I stand on it, but here it is. 10,000 years. We showed another game at Now Play This by Heather Robertson called 10,000 Years. It's, and sorry for the spoilers, about the challenge of creating a way of containing nuclear waste, which will remain deadly to people for that period of time. Containing it so it can withstand most natural disasters is one thing. But over the next 10,000 years, who can tell what will happen to people? So you have to devise a system to deter people who may not speak a common language or share any common culture, or about whom you can make any assumptions besides they're people. It's actually based on a real government report written about a real nuclear waste storage facility that they were building. 1 million years. Space weathering, which is bombardment by micrometeorites and high-energy particles, will have completely eroded Neil Armstrong's footprint in Tranquility Base, along with all the other footprints we've left up there. $10 million years. We're currently in the middle of a thing called the Holocene, and this is a mass extinction event. You know, like when all the dinosaurs died? This time, it's caused by human activity. Looking at the fossil record from previous mass extinction events, it takes about 10 million years for the level of biodiversity, like roughly the number of species, to recover after a mass extinction event. So we'll have left our mark on the world for a long time to come. So we're now starting to get into the really big numbers. 4.543 billion years. This is about how long the Earth has been around for. 7.9 billion years. This is about how long we have until the Earth is engulfed by the sun's expansion, probably. 14 billion years. This is about how long it's been since the universe came into being. And one final duration. 120 trillion years. About how long it is until all the stars that will ever come into existence have come into existence and have then burnt themselves out again, leaving the universe black and empty.